Heidi, Part 3. They approached a tiny, dark brown mountain hut. Here lived Peter, the goatherd, a boy 11 years old, who daily fetched the goats from the village and drove them up the mountain to the pastures. Peter came down in the evening with the goats. When he whistled, every owner would come and get their goats. At home he lived with his mother, an old blind grandmother, but he only spent enough time to eat his breakfast and again for supper. After that he goes to bed to sleep. He always left early in the morning and came home late at night. His father had an accident some years ago and died. His mother's name is Brigida, but she was just called grandmother. By now the poor little girl was so hot and uncomfortable, but said nothing to Peter. She watched the goats climb over the bushes, stones, and steep paths with their short legs. Suddenly sitting down on the ground, the child took off her shoes and socks. She started talking with Peter, and he had to answer many questions. She asked him how many goats he had, and where he led them, and what he did with them when he got them there. Then Dita saw them. She cried out, "Heidi, where are your new shoes that I just bought for you, and the new socks I just made myself? Where are they, Heidi?" The child pointed down and said, "There." "How could you be so stupid, Heidi? Who do you think will go there to fetch them? Please, Peter, run and get them." "I am late already," replied Peter. With his hands in his pockets, Dita said, "I'll give you a 5-penny coin if you go." With that, Peter started running down the path. He arrived back in a short time. Dita had to praise him and gave him her little coin. His face was beaming, and he put the money deep in his pocket. They still had to climb a steep path behind Peter's hut. After 3/4 of an hour, they reached the hut of the old man. From there you could see far down into the valley. Behind the hut stood 3 trees. Above them you could see green pastures. Overlooking the valley, the uncle had made himself a bench by the side of the hut. He quietly watched the children climbing up with their goats, and Aunt Dita behind them. Heidi reached the top first, and approaching the old man, she held out her hand and said, "Good evening, grandfather." "Well, what does that mean?" replied the old man in a rough voice. Heidi looked at him with his thick gray beard and shaggy eyebrows. Heidi's aunt had arrived with Peter, who was eager to see what was going to happen. "Good day to you, uncle," said Dita, as she approached. "This is Tom and Adele's child." "Why do you bring her here?" asked the uncle, and turning to Peter he said, "Bring my goats. How late you are already." "Uncle, I have brought the little girl for you to keep," said Dita. "I have done my share these last 4 years, and now it's your turn to provide for her."